I'm here with Pat Smith, wellness coach to elite men. I want to open this, Pat, by you introducing yourself. Tell us a little bit about you and what you do, the kind of men that you're working with.
Sure. Thanks for having me. Yeah. So for the last 4+ years, full time, I've been working as a men's high performance coach. So I primarily work on teaching individuals the mental and emotion skills associated with providing themselves with how to perform at a high level, both in business and at home. And so I've been doing this now, like I said, for full time for about 4 years. I've worked with business owners, entrepreneurs, business professionals, lots of different industries, real estate, financial services, energy, a lot of different areas in that sense. And really, my focus again is just getting guys to utilize and leverage the mental and emotion skills that they potentially have never learned and gets them back into actually building and growing a business that they enjoy without feeling so much stress and anxiety around it.
Awesome. So, just to remind everybody, the topic today is when he's used to solving problems and this isn't solvable.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's lead with that as a question. Why does just be there sound so simple but lands almost impossible for some men?
Well, when I think about the clients that I work with, and many of them 30, 40, and 50, and as you know, that can be in many different stages of the menopause journey, right? Peri actually in the middle, and then actually post menopause is so many guys have become acclimated. Their whole identity from when they started in the workforce they've been the doer, always needing to be on the go. So when you tell someone who's been running a million miles an hour for decades on end to just be, you're actually telling their system to do the opposite of what they've already done, which is training them, which seems, as you said, it sounds so simple, but it's really not that easy for these men. And they've been accustomed, they've wired their mind to be on the go all the time, to fix, to firefight, especially if you're an entrepreneur or a business owner, you wear so many hats that the idea of just simply being is so counterintuitive to their nature that that's more difficult for them than having the weight of the world on their shoulders. So that's how I see that being such a challenge for many men in this specific, stage of life.
Right. And how does that show up?
Well, first and foremost, the idea is when you're working to get them to just be, their mind is racing to try to figure out what can I actually do that's going to make me feel productive. And so in a relationship standpoint, what I often see is they're wanting to fix their partner. They feel like they need to fix themselves, or they need something external to make the situation better. So they're not really just being, they're still forcing their conditioning process onto other individuals in some way, or oftentimes it's for themselves. So it's still doing. And so the idea with that is, in order to be, they're having to train their mind to do the opposite. But the way it typically shows up is they'll settle for a bit. Sounds good. Oh, okay, I can relax. But within minutes, often it's okay. What's next? What should I be doing? And it's that word. What should I do? I should be doing something more. I should be supporting my partner. I should go fix it. I should be the one to be able to make her feel better. And I find oftentimes that actually pushes individuals away, because one of the key things that I share, even in my relationship with my fiance, and I'll often share, is F or L. Do you want me to fix, or do you want me to listen? And there's two totally different things. And oftentimes for the women, they just want us to listen. And there's actually an S that I actually add in often sometimes too. Do you need support? Do you want F, L, or S? Fix? Do I need to come in and fix the situation? Because I'm damn good at doing that. I can go in and really be the agent to take care of that. Do you want me to just listen, to allow for you to emotionally process and be that sounding board, which for so many women, that is creating psychological safety as well. And then, or do you want me to support? Do you need me to have your back and talk you through it without needing to fix it? So I feel like those are some different ways that it can show up. And there's some healthy ways where men can feel like they have a part in the solution, if you will, but
Hmm.
oftentimes it's not the exact same in what they would do in business or in their normal life, which is, all right, I'm just going to charge forward and crush it. And that doesn't necessarily work in some of these instances, as you may know.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, that's the typical default for, I think, all men, not just
Mm-hmm.
elite men, is to fix things, to provide solutions. That's what we're um, acclimated, as you said, and enculturated to do. That, this is our role in life, to provide solutions.
Yeah.
And so I'm hearing that there's a certain amount of frustration that
Mm-hmm.
comes up with this
Mm-hmm.
because this isn't their normal situation. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. And at any point, and keep in mind, it's really about getting familiar with the unfamiliarity of not being the fixer and not being the solution person. And that can be frustrating when you're a beginner at anything and you've been so accustomed to being, especially the guys that I work with, as a business owner or as an entrepreneur, there's not many other individuals that lead you. So you seem to be the head honcho, if you will. And in
Hmm.
that sense, when you go from being that person and that's your identity to going to the very basement level of being a beginner, and you're like, how the heck can I be so efficient and so effective? I can make millions here and I can be the worst at this. It becomes frustrating. It's like, how the heck can I do that? But that's really the test, because this up here, the what you see on paper, the money, the business, and that all is great. And why would all that matter if you can't take care of just some of what would be seemingly basic, which is like supporting your partner? And so there's frustration because you're new at it. It's like you're going in trying to, for these men, I would equate it to, right? Let's say if you're a sports fan, I'll just use baseball for example, right? You're a professional, you're in the MLB, and you're used to hitting home runs, and you go back to a new skill, and now here you are and all you can do is hit off the tee and barely hit off the tee at that, right? So it's like, holy cow, look at this separation. And that's frustrating because it's a new skill that they have to develop. But the truth of the matter is, the more they get used to it, like anything you do, whether it's in the gym, I consider it a mental and emotion repetition. That the more you do that, the less frustrating it becomes, because you move away from a beginner, then you move into a novice, and then you move into a more experienced individual. But it takes time and it takes effort. Just like if they were to, in that sense, it's a lot of comparing apples to oranges. They're comparing this other part of their life to this part of their life and thinking that they need to be the same. And that's one thing, is like the meaning that they assign behind it. And it's just not true. And until that there's some delineation there and they can see it for separate things, then they're going to continue to be frustrated.
Right. So from what I am hearing, he
Yeah.
knows how to solve things. This
Mm-hmm.
is what he does. But this isn't a solvable solution. There's nothing broken.
Right.
So where does that leave him? He's not got something to solve. So how does that show up for him in terms of assessing this as a problem
Mm-hmm.
that he can't solve?
Yeah. So I'll use an example. One of the easiest, lowest hanging fruit I feel for men is to pay attention to their mindset. And what I mean by that is, to go even a little bit step further, is to pay attention to the words that they use, even if it's something that they think. So to allude to what you just shared, if that individual was to say, I have a problem with not being able to solve my partner's troubles right now, like this season of life, and they read that back, and anybody could do this right now. If they were to watch this video live, they could write that down, or if they were watching it later for the recording, they could pause and writing that down. I have a problem with dot 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 dot. There's an emotional resonance that comes to that. So the importance of that is, if I switch that word out, the problem, to opportunity, right? Problem starts to create narrow focus, and oh my gosh, I'm doomed. This is challenging. There's a lot of it's like pressure around it, which they're used to, and that's what they want. But the truth is, like you said, it's not something to solve. So it's, I have an opportunity with that, And what that does is it opens up their perception to what's possible, and oftentimes puts a mirror right in front of them and says, I have an opportunity to grow. It's not up to me to solve someone else's issue. It's up to me to be the partner that can be there for them. And so that is it's almost it's like a flip of the role. Instead of fixing someone else or something else, it forces them to look within, and they don't need to fix themselves. They just need to continue to build up that skill to actually have the capacity, the emotional intelligence, the compassion to be there for that individual. And so to me, that's where you have an opportunity, not a problem.
Right, right. So there's no clear move, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's approaching this. There's no clear move for him to do next. And as you said at the beginning, it's what do I do next?
Mm-hmm.
How does that leave him when there isn't a clear next?
Mm-hmm. All right. Of course, confused, of challenged, frustrated, to what you alluded to. But I would say what you can do next is literally, and I see this often, is we can be in the exact same, right? Two people, right? Let's say Simon and I are in the exact same room, and we can have two totally different experiences.
Right.
And so what that individual can do next, it is actually an action, but it's different than what they would think would be the firefighting solution that they would go to, and it would be, how can I? Because there's an idea of vagal theory, and it's also called relational frequency, which is all just talking in some sense about the individual who can stay calm, cool, and collected in their nervous system when someone else is up and down, which when you think about hormones, it could be all over the place. When this person can stay steady, the man, that is going to be what the thing is. It's going to help their partner the most, who is fluctuating in all different areas. So their next step is to figure out, what can I do to keep myself calm and what we would consider coherent. I'm not sure. Are you familiar with that term at all?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, right, heart coherence is a real thing. We've all felt what it's like when we feel tension in the room. Right? Our
Mm-hmm.
partners can also feel the opposite of that. When we feel, when they don't need to know it, they don't even need to be consciously aware of it, but their body, just like when people in the same room kind of feed off each other's energy, we can be, as men, that coherent base, and over time that can support the women in whatever they actually need. And so that would be the first step I would encourage anyone to get used to, is learn what it's like to live and be coherent around that individual. So that would be an amazing first step, to give them almost some action into the sense and feel like it is they're doing something specific, even though in reality they're not really changing that much. They're just changing how they show up, which is one of the most important pieces.
Right. So do you think that for some men,
Mm-hmm.
they start, talking about this becoming steady,
Mm-hmm.
this coherence. Do you see that some men find this, their system, they're internalizing this as a threat, so they have a threat response to it?
Yeah, in some respect, I could see that, because it's challenging their norm. And
Right.
so, in any time there is a level of uncertainty or unfamiliarity or newness, it feels like a threat. And the meaning assigned to that is, right, alert, 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 there's a problem. And right away in that moment, I would say, I believe that if they fall to that belief, if they believe that to be true, right, is there really that big of a problem? And I'll just stop here for a moment, just for sake of understanding. That same level of alert, 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 as if I can't fix this for my partner, is the same exact nervous system response that happens when you're being chased by a lion. But are
Right.
those two things true? And the brain doesn't filter between lion and can't fix this for my partner. They show up with the same resonance. So it's important for them to realize when it's alert, alert, alert. And if they go right to the meaning that there is a problem, they are going to feel that level of threat. If they can have the emotional awareness to notice, hey, I feel this going on in my system, alert, alert, alert. And instead of the alert being a problem, as I alluded to earlier, the alert being, hey, alert, you have an opportunity to do something different. Their perception moves out of what we would consider a narrowed focus into a broad focus, just like when you go on a walk. When you broaden your focus and you feel that digression in your nervous system, that's when it can be able to remove the threat. But without that awareness and with believing that to be true, that this is such an alert, and it's not just an alert that it's alert and problem, it's alert and opportunity, then that's where I feel the biggest disconnect is. Because the moment that they go down and believe it to be a problem, the mind is going to start to look for all the reasons why that is true, confirmation bias, utilizing the reticular activating system to find more ways to try to fix it, and then realizing, even as we've talked, knowing that there is no fix, and then proving themselves right and getting even more frustrated. And then it continues to build that muscle until eventually, like most men, if they're not understanding this, then they end up like a pressure cooker and it blows up, which is never a good thing, because that's one of the hardest places to repair from, of course.
Right. So would you say in particular,
Mm-hmm.
um, this affects the men you're working with, the elite men,
Mm-hmm.
those real power achievers?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say that impact is harder on them to step back from this problem solving?
To some degree, I would say, yeah, they're more apt to fall victim to this. Only only because I share that, because many of their external achievements and all they've ever known is go 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 in that sense. And so to digress and do something different, to train the nervous system in a way that's not being run on cortisol and an upregulated nervous system all of the time, seems so counterintuitive that for them to step in the opposite direction takes more time. And I use this example often with my clients. And it's kind of like, imagine that someone becomes 600 pounds overweight. It does not happen overnight. It takes time. In the same way that they would lose it, it wouldn't happen overnight. And so if this individual for the past 3-4 decades has trained himself to be go go go, high stress response, and that only feeds fuel to the fire for their partner in this situation, and they're being asked to calm down, rest into the parasympathetic, be in that coherent state. In the opposite, it surely is going to take some time. It's going to take some practice. It's going to take some consistency, trial and error, and you're most likely going to, not going to use the word, but F up often. And that is what helps you get better at it over time. So I do believe they're more apt to that than the individual who may have a really relaxed life. They're used to their normal routine. They go to potentially, let's just say, a 9 to 5, and they don't have the weight of the world and responsibility of a full business, and maybe even hundreds of employees and millions of dollars in revenue on their back. That may be a little bit different in terms of what they're used to in their nervous system, allowing for them to get down to that baseline a little bit quicker. So that's how I would compare the two.
Okay. So we're kind of circling this. Um, Action feels right.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they used to. Action feels right. Stillness feels wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So how do they adjust for that sense of this is the wrong thing to do? Because
Mm-hmm.
in my experience with other men, and I'm sure this is true for the men that you deal with, doing something that is wrong, that
Mm-hmm.
feels wrong, isn't something they're naturally going to lean into.
Right. Right. And just for clarifying question, you're sharing that they're so used to taking action, they feel like they need to be doing something, and they believe stillness as doing nothing. Correct?
Right. Yeah. Or not even just doing nothing, but the fact that just being still is the wrong response. That
Yeah.
that this isn't right for me to do, so I should do something else.
Mm-hmm. That word, I should do something else. Getting individual, if that's their thought, and they don't have to verbalize it, right? When
Right.
we think about language patterns and how, our life is a story, stories are made up of words, and words come from the ways we speak and the way we think. I should be doing something else. I could be doing something else. I can do something else. I can do something else because and that doing something else is going to look way more counterintuitive, and that something else, what they define something else, is the most important piece. Something else may not look like the action they're used to, which is go finding a quick fix and finding a solution to fix this problem like they do in the business. That something else can be the stillness. I can do something else, and that something else can be the stillness. So it so much so is what meaning they're placing behind these words, and how much that leads them to seeing things for the way they really are, right? One is right, one is wrong, but who decides that? Why is this wrong? The only reason they share that that's wrong is because it's not the same as what they used to do. But the truth is, we think about anything in life, it's if you keep doing the same things over and over and expecting something new to change, that doesn't work. And so it is so much of the mindset piece of getting familiar with why am I calling this right and this wrong, and who gets to decide that. And if I'm the one deciding that, can I make stillness be the right thing if it's proven to work?
So do you find they look to their partners for cues?
In what ways would you say?
So this, they're used to this problem solving. They're used to their partner reacting or
Mm-hmm.
responding to their problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
Now their partner is in a place where problem solving is not what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I really liked your fix, listen, solve
Yeah.
um, solution, that framework. But a lot of times, the women in this relationship, in this situation, they have so much else going on that solve isn't necessarily what they're looking for.
Right.
So they're giving some feedback,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're like, no, that's not what I need right now. I need you to be still. How does that impact them from getting that feedback? Now they're not. This is not just something they've got to internalize from themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Working with somebody like yourself, but they're getting this feedback from their partner. How does that impact them in terms of when they're looking at their relationship?
Hmm. I mean, I would say the one way it's going to impact them is going to force them to grow in ways that they haven't before, first and foremost. And that feedback is, I mean, feedback is just information, and it's up to us. And I even teach this often in leadership training when we do leadership development training for teams. Is feedback is just information, and often it is information based off someone else's thoughts, feelings, or opinions, and that's okay. So it's up to them to say, got it, and be willing. The impact it has is be willing to then take that for what it's worth, understanding where that is coming from, and then take the next appropriate action. So the impact there for them is really just it's an invitation more than anything to try to do something different than they've always done. Um, I'm not sure if that fully answered the question that you were
Yeah, no,
asking.
no, that's really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Because in the situations I've seen, um, there can be a lot of frustration from the female partner
Uh-huh.
with the male partner for not understand. And this was true in my own relationship,
Mm-hmm.
and this is where I first started to notice it. Um, my wife was getting more and more frustrated with me
Mm-hmm.
because I just wasn't understanding
Mm-hmm.
what was needed.
Mm-hmm.
And I wonder if that's true for your clients, is that yes, we're getting this information back, but they're not understanding what that information actually means.
Mm-hmm.
There's a you talked about a growth process,
Yeah.
um, and so you find that yeah, they're getting this information back. It's feedback. Okay, now what are you going to do with it?
Yeah.
Their actions aren't necessarily colored by the feedback they're getting. They just take the actions.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's where it's so important. And as you know, I think any relationship, it can be between you and your employee, it can be you and your partner, but the communication piece and leading with
Mhm.
curiosity. You said something interesting. If I don't understand personally, like let's say I don't understand anything, if I don't understand something, what am I going to do? I'm going to seek out new information or I'm going to ask questions, one of the two. And there need to be curiosity-led based questions so it doesn't feel defensive. So, right, if the partner shares something with you, and then you say, "Well, why do you feel that way?" Guard up, not good. Hey, okay, thanks for sharing that with me. I'd really like to understand that more. Can you help me understand how that feels for you as a woman, or whatever the case is? But
Right.
in that sense, there's a level of psychological safety that is provided, which allows for them to understand. And in that communication aspect, by building that up over time, it is going to allow for them to understand their partner. Because as men, how would we ever know what that's like? We never experience that. We have a 24-hour hormonal cycle. It doesn't work like that for us. And so it's important to ask questions and ask them, right? First, package them appropriately, time and place. Okay. If your wife is in the middle of something and you ask why you always acting like that, come on, come on. You got to think smarter. But this is where they can leverage so much of these skills. And if you want to really allow for them to get a task done, or give them a task to do, use this as an amazing experiment. The moment they're able to do that, it's going to transfer into so many different areas of life. So when I work with some of the guys that I work with, if they find themselves in this particular instance with their partner, I also remind them of the return on investment this will help them in other areas. And oftentimes, weirdly enough, there's more buy-in that way. So
Right.
those questions are going to be much more helpful. Or it's very simple. Hey, hey, partner, whatever the name is, do you mind if I ask a question about what you're going through? If they say no, great. Respect the boundary. If they say yes, they've now given you an invitation to learn more. And if they learn more, my question then oftentimes is then what stands to happen in your relationship when you start to ask those more inquisitive questions and you're actually curious? What happens for your partner about you? And typically what I often see is it's more connection, it's more trust. That's what they're after anyways. And that is what's going to help navigate this through such a tough period, or can be a challenging period, without knowing that. So I believe that when there's a lack of understanding, there's an opportunity for information to ask questions. We have to be mindful of the questions we ask, how we ask them, when we ask them, their tone, right time and place. It's like when I work with clients and I talk about, well, when did you give some feedback to your direct report, who's the VP of sales? Well, I went and bashed him right there Monday morning, right when he walked in the office. Okay, tell me how that went, right? Versus, hey, you mind if we have a conversation about this later on, after some of the things have settled down? It always goes so much better. And that is no different in a relationship. If we see those signals, like we talked about earlier, the cue of my partner in fight or flight, is that the right time for them to receive information? Is that the right time for me to ask questions? No, I'm running away from a lion. It doesn't work that way. Help them digress, get them to that moment, ask the permission for the psychological safety, and then enter if they're open to it.
Yeah. So I use a framework
Okay.
which is real simple: sit, listen, and believe.
Tell me
Find
more.
that.
Yeah.
So find that time to sit down,
Sure.
and as you said, don't do it when they're in the middle of dishes or somebody else or some other activity.
Yeah.
Then actually listen actively.
Mm-hmm.
Don't just wait for your turn to talk.
Mm-hmm.
And then believe what they're actually telling you, regardless of what you may have come into the conversation
Mm-hmm.
thinking their response is going to be or should be,
Mm-hmm.
because you read a list of symptoms somewhere
Mm-hmm.
and now you know everything about this topic because
Sure.
you've done your research. Actually, the best research you can do is lived experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what is that person actually experiencing? So I break that down as sit,
Yeah.
listen, and believe.
I like that a lot. I like that a lot. Well, the idea of just dropping expectations and assumptions allows for the curiosity for you to respond, not listen just because you're like as you said, waiting for them to get done talking. It actually opens up your mind to understanding and comprehending. Versus if I go in there with expectation and assumptions, it's almost like I already have a lens on, and if it doesn't fit the lens, that it's all off. It's like the game's off.
Yeah.
And we even share oftentimes in leadership development training when we're talking with teams and men and leaders and all this, is that instead of going to give feedback first, ask for it. And that's also the same thing as instead of going in and like digging right in, listen first. Allow for them to feel comfortable in that, which then opens up the conversation for then you to be able to talk if you are able to later. And oftentimes those can just be questions as well. It doesn't need to be cloaked in opinion or judgment or
Hmm.
emotions.
Yeah. So one of the things when we're looking at that sit stage,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's presence, right?
Yeah,
And you talked about this earlier, being a steady partner.
sure.
That's a big part of that is just being present. But presence can feel like being passive,
Mm-hmm.
even though it isn't. So how do your clients respond to that, where you're trying to guide them to being present and kind of trying to show them that being present doesn't mean they're being passive?
It can be challenging, first and foremost. However, due to their accustomed nature of wanting to do something, what I invite them to do is, in order to get present, is I will give them a bit of a task. And what that often looks like is I just ask them, hey, before you go into these conversations, or even as you're listening, because you can listen simultaneously in this sense, just focus on the breath to go in and out slowly and steadily. Because really, the truth of the matter is that's going to regulate your brain waves, it's going to regulate your nervous system, and it's going to help them do the same. So I invite them with that level of being present to do something with that. And oftentimes, hey, take a moment. That way they feel like they're taking a little bit of action. It's like they got skin in the game. They kind of feel cool about it. Is just have take some of those breaths. And I'll notice even when I do that, I can still listen to someone else. I can still focus on my breathing. And what the body knows how to do, it's so good at being trained. Everything we do,
Hmm.
right? Imagine you had to relearn how to drive your car every day, or tie your shoes, or figure out how to use this thing, this computer. Holy cow, all over again. It knows how to like latch onto your instructions. And so what I often say is get into what I call heart coherence breathing. It's not something I made up. It's through Heart Math Institute. I don't know if you ever heard of Heart Math Institute. They talk a lot about coherence, and all it is before you go into these conversations, give your body some instructions on how you want it to be, and that is going to give you a level of presence. And it can feel like I'm not doing anything, but the truth of the matter is your body's keeping you in that moment so you can do something, and that something is listen effectively. So that breath is really simple. It's usually 4 to 5 seconds in through the nose, 4 to 5 seconds out through the nose. And once you get a nice cadence going in, it's oftentimes we invite individuals to breathe into really this heart and chest area. And so the physiological signals of the breath going slow in and out, if you're anxious about this conversation, you're frustrated, you're angry, your heart's beating really fast, the breath can physiologically send signals to slow that down, and there's a mirror between the heart and the mind. So the minute that this starts to slow down, it tells the mind start to slow down, and then we can move into that present state. You do that beforehand a lot of these conversations, or right when they're getting to ready to begin, and then pull back and allow for that just to be the normal cadence. The body will start to take note because it feels more natural because you've already done it. Then you give themselves an opportunity to be more present. It is challenging. It's challenging. Their
Hmm.
inclination is to do the opposite, to get into fight or flight, to get into that upregulated nervous system. And I always just invite them. I'm like, this is you. It's not you. It's actually you doing something. So I challenge them to flip that mindset, to flip the words that they're using on this isn't really doing anything. This is passive. But again,
Mm.
define passive. Like, are you truly doing nothing? No, I'm here with her right now, sitting next to her, action, listening, action, focusing on my breath to stay regulated, action. How is that passive? So I love to challenge them in that way. Is it's all based off the meanings and the words that we use, because my idea of passive and your idea of passive are totally different. and so is
Right.
every other man out there. And so it's up to you to define it in a way that will work for you, that's going to support you instead of pull you out of it.
Right. So, and you talked about there briefly, you touched on fight and flight.
Yeah.
And I think that's that's such a
Mm-hmm.
common response to situations we're not
Yeah.
familiar with.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I've seen in conversation is one of the responses for men in these situations is to check out, to
Oh, yeah,
withdraw.
for sure.
And how do you get them to not take that as a response, as an action?
Yeah.
Um, is that checking out, that withdrawing of this is a situation I don't know what to do with, so I'm just going to step back from it.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's a matter. It's a level of avoidance, of course.
Hmm.
Again, it's challenging their status quo and it's challenging the unfamiliarity of the situation. But typically, what ends up happening is when that fight or flight goes up. I like to think of it as I don't know if you've ever seen the arcade. I use this analogy a lot. Have you ever seen the arcade game where you take like the big hammer and when you hammer it, it like spikes the thing up? That's our nervous system, right? It gets spiked. And anytime I react or respond, I'm prolonging it, right? So if I were to be in that situation and I spit back and say something back at my partner, I'm actually keeping it spiked up. They
Right.
believe that avoiding it is allowing for it to go down. In some degree, it is, but you haven't actually intentionally allowed for it to go down in a way for you to be able to sit with it. So it may go down, but the next time it happens, now I'm right back. And so what I invite them is to understand that really that spike in that nervous system that they feel, which is that threat, which when there's a threat, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to run away. So if I can allow, and this is, I learned this, and we teach this in some of the courses that I've taught with Dr. Joe Dispenza, where they talk a lot around emotional regulation. It's emotional intelligence. It's called the, oh gosh, I'm going to blank on it. Essentially, it's just talking specifically around that refractory period of that chemical, that surge of chemicals that we feel in those moments, that is that fight or flight that makes us want to eject. Those typically, once they're spiked up, if we wait just for about 90 seconds, just about 90 seconds, they subside. And when those subside, then it gives them the opportunity to feel okay and safe enough to still be in that moment. So it's an invitation for them to be with the uncomfortable moment because it only lasts for a little bit. And so that's one of the big things I would say is like they can get beyond the leaving portion if and when they realize that, hey, this is going to subside. It's just a chemical reaction. It's the arousal of these chemicals feeling a threat from this situation because it's unfamiliar. The only way to get more familiar with it is to sit with it. Avoiding
Right.
it is only
Hmm.
prolonging it. What we avoid, kind of like the idea of what we resist persists. Okay, you avoided it today. Good job. Guess what happens when you go do it the next day? You're going to have the same thing, and you never the men never give themselves an opportunity to move forward from that position. So being in the moment, as uncomfortable as it may be, allows for them to grow the capacity to be in that moment, to be emotionally regulated in the nervous system in a fight or flight moment, and not to avoid. And
Right.
if I'm running away from my partner when she needs me the most, how's that going to build a relationship? If I'm there working on it actively with her when she needs me the most, what is that going to do to the relationship? And I ask them, what type of relationship do you want? And when they tell me it's the one, that's going to require you for you to be there, not to avoid, not to move there. And guess what? I get to learn that stuff myself every single day. So I'm not perfect either. And the truth of the matter is, you get better with it over time. It becomes more
Right.
comfortable. It becomes more familiar. So that's where I would say one of the easiest ways for them to move forward with out of avoiding is just to understand that process. I always share when you can understand what's going on, why it's happening, like the physiological, the chemical
Hmm.
response, the how makes more sense.
Right.
And the analogy I'll often use is like a bike. If I gave Simon a bike, he never doesn't even know what the heck a bike is. He will figure it out eventually. But if I can get him to understand the importance of the bike, how you balance, how you use the steering wheel, how you use the brakes, what the chain does, how to fix the chain, when you go in to ride the bike, you are going to feel much more comfortable and willing to do it. It's kind of like the idea of having more information. So I like to, if we can share this as much as possible proactively, when guys are in that moment, they can say, oh, here it is. My emotions are going crazy. Let's give it some time to digress. And then finally, I can have that proactive conversation. Finally, I can listen in a way that doesn't upset me or trigger me.
This has been great, Pat. So as we start to wrap up, I have one last question for you. For men watching this, and
Yeah.
you've talked about becoming a steady partner.
Mm-hmm.
What's their first step? They've seen all of this. They've understand our conversation. They understand that being a steady partner is the goal.
Mm-hmm.
What's their first step?
Well, the first step would be awareness. I believe awareness in any sense is the first step to making a change.
Right.
If you're unaware of it, if it's subconsciously running, if you're running it on autopilot, then it's running you. So, becoming aware of what triggers you the most. Those triggers are clues, and those clues give you an opportunity. They're not a problem. If I keep telling her, she always irritates me. Cross out the she. I always irritate me. I let myself be there. Notice that. Take ownership. Become aware of the triggers. And from there, that's your clue to try some of these techniques that we shared about. If that triggers you the most, see what you can see. See if you can be in the situation just 1 second longer. And in doing so, that's a step. It's just training that nervous system. So awareness, understanding the triggers, and of course, taking ownership, not blaming the other person. It's a two-way street in a relationship. We all know this, even so some men don't want to admit it. You have to take ownership of what you can do about it and be that person. And so, right, awareness, well, I guess understanding the triggers, which is a type of awareness, and then doing something different about it and taking ownership and agency in that moment. So those would just be some 3 simple steps. And it doesn't mean you have to revamp the whole thing, although that may happen over time. Pick one small thing, right? One small thing. Just like anything you've ever done, start small, build the momentum. So I would say don't get overwhelmed with remove the idea of being overwhelmed by needing to fix it all at once, which natural inclination for many men, especially the men I work with. But just pick one small thing, work on that, get better at that. Then you can start to see how much easier that can become for another situation or circumstance. So those would be my little tips. I know they're cliche, you probably hear them all the time. The truth of the matter is, if you don't have those,
Right.
then like I said, you're running unconsciously to these things, and they're running you, and you're no longer in control. For most men, we like to be in control. So this is a way for them to actively be a participant in their journey and with their partner.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
So how can people get hold of you?
Sure. So I'm primarily on Instagram, which is Pat Smith Wellness, all as it sounds, PATSMITH Wellness. Also on LinkedIn as well, Pat Smith Wellness on the backslash after that. So I post a lot on there. And then I also have an online men's community on the platform School. We have about almost 800 members, and it's primarily for business owners and business professionals who want to learn how to leverage and build the mental and emotion skills associated with running a business, with running a life, with being in partnership, and with taking care of themselves. So I'll share those links with you as well if you want to add those in. It's free to join. We love to have anybody in there. We do monthly challenges. We work to just build connection of a brotherhood of men who are on similar paths, similar journeys, many of them wanting to build similar things, and just understanding how important it is to have that level of connection and that level of brotherhood and accountability outside of our partnerships. So those would be the best ways for me.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Been a great conversation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Of course, glad to be here. Thanks, Sam.
Bye.
See ya.